He was the Director of National Intelligence, the government official that overlooked the entire United States intelligence community. There is no doubt that America sure has its secrets, and whomever fills that spot likely knows them all. John Ratcliffe, who served as the director from May of 2020 to the end of President Donald Trump's term in office in January of 2021, just laid some bombshell claims about UFOs. Here's what he said and what it might mean. Stay tuned. You're about to journey beyond the Black Vault.
Can you tell us, have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon. And this actually is a program that's been in place for a few years in terms of a task force that has been there under the National Defense Authorization Act. But as you correctly point out, Maria, there's now a report that will be issued by the Pentagon, by the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence. I actually wanted to get this information out and declassified before I left office, but we weren't able to get it down into an unclassified format that we could talk about quickly enough. But frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain, that movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. So in short, things that we are observing that are difficult to explain. And so, there's actually quite a few of those, and I think that information is being gathered and will be put out in a way that the American people can see. We always, when we see these things, Maria, we always look for a plausible explanation. Weather can cause disturbances, visual disturbances. Sometimes we wonder whether or not our adversaries have technologies that are a little bit further down the road than we thought or that we realized. But there are instances where we don't have good explanations for some of the things that we've seen. And, when that information becomes declassified, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that.
Can you tell us where it was seen?
Actually, all over the world. There have been sightings all over the world. And when we talk about sightings, the other thing I will tell you is it's not just a pilot or just a satellite or some intelligence collection. Usually we have multiple sensors that are picking up these things. And so, again, some of this are just they're unexplained phenomenon. And there's actually quite a few more than have been made public. So I think it'll be healthy for as much of this information to get out there as possible so that the American people can see some of the things that we've been dealing with.
Man, oh man, I was not expecting that interview from John Ratcliffe and what he said. I was quite impressed, to be honest with you. We've seen quite a few government officials speaking out about UFOs and UAPs and potentially this report that's coming, but most of which was conjecture, opinions. Hey, we want to know more, but they don't really say much. You've got John Brennan's interview, Marco Rubio's interview, all of which are available on this channel if you haven't seen them. But this is the first time that I've seen any way where I really feel he was going into what really is there and that he had the knowledge of it. So I had to make this video and essentially use it as a launching point for a new, I would say, sub-series to the Black Vault's channel called Beyond the Black Vault. This is that premiere episode. I hope you enjoy. I'm John Greenwald Jr., founder and creator of theblackvault.com. And again, I had to make this video because what Ratcliffe said, in my opinion, is, well, it's pretty important at this point for a couple of different reasons. So you just watched the interview. That's compliments of Fox News and Maria Bartiromo, who was the host. I didn't play the whole segment. I just went into what Ratcliffe said. I will go ahead and link to the full video below if you are interested. However, I did encompass all of what he said about UFOs. Now, why did I want to create this video? Well, number one, bring you the story, but also number two, talk a little bit about what we just saw. Let me kind of bring up the first reaction that I had, which was the news host's reaction and her facial expressions. I think she realized to the mainstream media, whether you like Fox News or not, I know they're highly controversial, but whether you like it or not, I think that reaction represents a true human reaction to what Ratcliffe is saying, because you would expect him to just say, well, there's stuff in the sky, but likely we can explain it all. Reports coming out, I'm sure they'll do more to shed light on it. But quite the opposite just happened. The former director of National Intelligence just said that not only are UAPs real, but he said that they couldn't explain them, that they tried to, that he couldn't explain it, and that he tried to get this information out, that he tried to last year in 2020, before he left office and Trump's term ended, tried to get this information out to the general public. I really want to know what sparked that. Now, granted, we know about the UAP task force. We know about the fact that they are going to create this report, hopefully by June 1st. But I wanted to know, what was pushing him to essentially get ahead of that. And even though he and his office was tasked to do this report, should Trump have received a second term, who was directing him to fast track that? Or was that his own desire? And if it was his own desire, what did he know and why did he want to make it public? A lot of that is unwritten. Now, based on a hunch, last year I had filed a request through the Freedom of Information Act for Ratcliffe's emails and internal communications, all about UAPs, UFOs, and so on. So what I was aiming for was that, again, just kind of more of a hunch. I had really kind of no direct evidence like this interview that he was pushing and advocating for this. So my guess is he communicated about it, and my guess is that FOIA will yield some very interesting results. So that's about 3.5, 4 months, obviously, in processing as I record this. It is not answered yet. Based on this interview, I followed up to try and kind of jumpstart that. Hopefully I can get some reasonable ETAs from the Office of Director of National Intelligence, which is where the FOIA is. So I will obviously update you guys when that comes along. Here's some other quotes, though, that hopefully you didn't miss from that interview. I would recommend go back, listen to it again, because I do feel that this is one of the more important interviews when it comes to government officials. Here's one of the things he says. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain that. Movements that are hard to replicate that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that, exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. What's interesting about this? The United States Air Force, the military branch that has been mysteriously quiet. And my skeptical hat comes along and says, hey, what if they're testing classified technology, because they have been fairly mum on the topic. However, the Navy has not. Here's the former director of national intelligence saying, yeah, the Air Force is seeing them too. And that's fairly contradictory to what we've been led to believe. And some of the documents that have come out, especially with the spokespeople on the Air Force side, they're just trying to say, hey, these are all UASs or unmanned aerial systems, and essentially drones, right? That's their take on all of this. And yet Ratcliffe is saying, we got no reasonable explanation for it, and they're experiencing or exhibiting technology that we just don't have, that we can't explain. That's a pretty mind-blowing statement to make. And I believe the root of what he is talking about, in my opinion, is classified. And regardless of this is extraterrestrial or not, I would imagine that his interview, more than Marco Rubio, more than John Brennan, more than any Donald Trump, who also spoke about UAPs, more than anybody, I would almost guarantee that this will raise eyebrows on some level, because he was likely encroaching on a classified area. We know that because we keep hearing from the United States military and the United States government, this UAP topic is going to be classified. All of the investigations are going to stay classified. They're not going to release anything. I've run into some roadblocks myself. So when he starts saying specific characteristics about UAPs, I would almost bet money that that is classified information or impeding on it, and that he will likely get some type of attention for this, let alone maybe in an investigation. I'm not sure, But that's really going to get interesting here as time goes on and once word passes about this, because he's giving very specifics here about sound barriers being broken without a sonic boom, and obviously admitting to technology that we just can't identify. Here's another one. We always look for a plausible explanation. Weather can cause disturbances, visual disturbances. Sometimes we wonder whether or not our adversaries have technologies that are a little bit further down the road than we thought or that we realized. But there are instances where we don't have good explanations for some of the things that we've seen. Also, drilling that point that they can't figure it out. For him to say that, that's huge, because he would be in the know. In his position, especially if he was getting involved and entrenched in the UAP topic, he would have the access as DNI to access all of that UAP and UFO information. And I believe his mindset here is very, very fascinating to me, because he would be privy to, if this was all classified technology, he would likely play down Bartiromo's question and essentially just say, yeah, there's strange things we can't see in the sky, but likely this report will shed light on maybe what we're dealing with here, alluding to more classified technology, so on and so forth. So that really does speak volumes to where he's at. Here's one more I'll point out to you guys. It's not just a pilot or just a satellite or some intelligence collection. Usually we have multiple sensors that are picking up these things. There's actually quite a few more that have been made public, so I think it'll be healthy for as much of this information to get out there as possible. Why does he feel that way? I also want to know that. I want to know why he feels the public should know, because from a national security perspective, I would think, although I don't support it, I would think that the military would want to keep this closed. I would think that the powers that be go, hey, wait a minute, we can't let the general public in on this. We can't let them know. He would be a former power that be. And so for him to now come out into essentially the private sector as speaking as a citizen, for him to support the release of this information, that is fascinating to me. And when you juxtapose it with Marco Rubio and Brennan was very kind of shifty in that interview, didn't seem comfortable with it, so on and so forth. Rubio, he's acting on an interest, and a rightful one at that, because it could pose a threat to national security. So he wants to know more. All of that is something that we should know more about. So from a senator standpoint, that's all interesting, but not like this. The last thing I'll point out to you guys is how prepared he was for this question. Now, did Bartiromo kind of prep him with questions? That's possible. So maybe he knew it was coming, and that's all fine. All my points still stand. But he seemed incredibly knowledgeable. Just was able to go boom, boom, boom with all of the facts about the report coming out, what UAPs had, the technical details and specifications behind the unexplained phenomena that they have no answers to. He had that all readily available in the front of his brain. So for me, even though he had a heads up on that question, that further supports the importance of this. That if he had the heads up on it, he wasn't caught off guard, and he chose to be that well informed and to put that much detail into his answers. That is why I feel that this is unexpected to me and fascinating, and one that I think will get the attention of the intelligence community as it stands right now, because I do believe he skirted that line into a classified territory. That said, I hope you enjoyed the premiere episode of Beyond the Black Vault. There's more to come, not only in this, but other series as well. More content for you guys. So make sure you visit www.theblackvault.com. If you feel so inclined, you can support the site simply by spreading the word. That is the biggest help to me. Obviously, clicking up that thumbs up button and clicking on the subscribe button, all of that helpful as well. And for those of you who want to throw in some support via Patreon, you can do so as well. That link is in the description. That being said, this is John Greenwald Jr. signing off. We'll see you next time.